Welcome to Healing with Tom Insel. I'm Dr. Tom Insel, and I'm here today with Charlie Green, also known as CG5.
Hello, Tom. Nice to meet you.
Charlie, great to have you. It is a real pleasure to have you join us for this series. Most people are going to know you as CG5, and for those who don't know you, I'll just introduce you quickly to say that Charlie is one of those rare people who is just incredibly talented. He would describe himself, I think, as neurodivergent, but he's somebody who has a phenomenal range of skills as a creator, as a singer-songwriter, as a musician, and as a producer as well. So he's got a background that allows him to do a lot of remarkable things with a huge following. Over 3 million followers.
Over 4 million on YouTube.
4 million on YouTube. And on TikTok?
Almost 3 million on TikTok, yeah.
Whoa. So you may be the most popular person I've ever met. That's pretty terrific.
Really?
That's a spectacular story to be able to tell. And what I really would love to do to get us started is to hear about how that happened. So maybe we could start by, this is a little awkward, but let me ask you to describe yourself. What do you want people to know about you?
Well, for those of you who don't know me, I am CG5, or there was a recent TikTok trend where the sound goes, everybody told me that I sound like CG5. And it was actually me saying that. And there's a whole meme on there. It's like, you kind of sound like CG5. Well, that's because I am that guy.
Surprise.
Surprise. I've been making music since I've known music since I was a fetus, and I've been making music since I was 5 on the computer. So
Were you slow to talk as a baby? Do you know?
I think I was. Yes, that's what my parents told me, at least. Of course, I don't exactly remember, but I know that my parents did say that.
Mm-hmm.
I was not very easy on talking, but I communicated well with music, for sure.
Yeah, a lot of people will say that, particularly people who start musically at an early age, that music is easier for them to communicate with than words.
Yeah, especially for me, because growing up, I didn't have a very I had a very hard time understanding social cues and stuff like that. I mean, of course, I was a child, but as I was growing up, and but yeah, I just really spoke through music. I mean, that's always been my first language, and English is my second. That's what my mom has always said about me. So that's nice.
Did you start playing an instrument, or were you singing, or how did it play out?
I was basically playing the piano a little bit at like 3, basically just mashing the keys and stuff like that. I was born with what they call perfect pitch, so I have never been a big fan of reading music, and I just kind of like to pick things up by ear. But I was just getting started with that when I was 3. But when I was 5 years old, I started producing music at that age. So on the computer, my dad had a laptop, and I wasn't allowed to play video games, or at least have video games. So being able to play them was a special occasion, and I'm very grateful that I didn't have video games so much during that time, because if I did, I'd probably be more focused on that now than I am on music, which is what I was basically. Not forced to be into music, but like that was the only thing that I had in front of me.
Your parents were musicians, or
my parents? They love music. They are musically inclined. Like they have singing voices of their own, but they were never. They never got into it as much as I did. In the technical side of things, that is, because music production was basically hardwired into me as soon as I opened that laptop and opened a software that was very simple to use, but it got me started. And at 5 years old, it was just mind blowing to be able to create something from scratch. And
with Pro Tools or what
so
did you
the
have?
software, definitely not Pro Tools. I was 5 years old. So I used a software called Hip Hop EJ4. So it was like a EJ products, and there was a lot. They had a lot of like drag and drops kind of stuff. A lot of samples that I could just mess around with, and that's what I did. And I made like, I'm exaggerating a little bit, just a little bit, but I made like a song every day on that thing because I was just jamming. I was so excited. I fell in love with music that as soon as I found out you could produce it on the computer. So I've been producing music for what is now 18 years. It's just all I've ever known.
Charlie, you're how old?
I'm 23. I'm about to turn 24 next week, actually.
Okay. Wow. So in this process, you had that gift of finding something you loved at a very early age, which many people don't get. But I gathered that you've also struggled a bit. Can you tell me a bit about that?
So, when I was very young, I received therapy for autism. And at that time, I was never officially diagnosed, but I had received things of therapy such as like aqua therapy, occupational therapy, and some music therapy. And it was just kind of just my parents were trying to figure me out a little bit, you know. I remember even during that time, this is kind of a side note, but I wore a helmet on my head to round out my head because I was a bit of a flathead, as they say. I had a flat head. So sometimes I go off on like little tangents and then I have to like circle back. So I'm like, so
sometimes the tangents can take you really interesting places too.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh wait a minute, I have to get back on track.
Yeah. So you were talking about as you were growing up that you got therapy.
Right. I got therapy for autism, and during that time I wasn't diagnosed. But I definitely had tendencies as I grew up that were neurodivergent.
Like, so what does that mean? I think a lot of people don't know the term neurodivergent.
So neurodivergent falls under the umbrella of autism, and it means something different for everybody. I would say if anybody goes through that kind of thing for themselves. But for me, it means that I communicate differently than others. I've always had a hard time making friends. I was actually diagnosed with autism last year, finally. I was just anticipating. I didn't anticipate because I didn't really know whether or not I had autism. But my mom had reminded me, or basically told me about it. And I was like, wait, I didn't know, like, if there's something going on with me that might be different, that is different than others, that is not exactly seen as normal. So like when I was growing up in high school, like I didn't make many friends. I moved a lot. Well, that wasn't because of that, but I moved a lot, and I've been meeting all these new groups of people, and got well acquainted with people, but never really held friends. Had a lot of friends. Never was really the first to talk to somebody unless I felt comfortable. I don't know. Like, it's always been kind of hard for me to create like friendships. And, there's just a lot that falls under the umbrella of neurodivergence and autism.
Got it. I mean, it's interesting because you've got 4 million followers who would love to consider you a friend. So it's played out in a way that's probably very different than you might have imagined when you were much younger. But I'd love to hear more about what that was like for you growing up, not having friends as one piece, having your music another piece, Did this affect your mental health? Did you struggle emotionally as you dealt with that?
I didn't really understand mental illness until, I was an adult. I didn't really like get it. Um, didn't really know what it was. Um, and so, like I said, when I was growing up, I didn't think I had any problems. I was kind of confused why people didn't want to make friends with me, or people didn't understand me very clearly.
Did you think there was something wrong with you?
I grew up with, like I said, I grew up with not a lot of friends because I had trouble connecting with people, with making friends, and so I never really had anybody to hang out with after school. I mean, maybe every now and then, but I always had my music to count on. I always, every day, I was working on something to further my talents, something that I knew that I was good at the very least, of everything that I was going through. Like I said, I didn't pinpoint any mental illnesses or anything. I was just like, okay, this is my life. I'm just into making music. That's all I want to do. So I'm going to do that. And I did a lot of extracurricular, like stage shows. Like my first production, I played Sebastian in Little Mermaid Junior in 7th grade, and that was pretty cool for me to do. I enjoyed that very much because it, and no pun intended, it got me out of my shell because I was a crab.
That's a good one.
Thank you. And I just enjoyed playing that part because I was in the spotlight. I was able to show people that I could sing and stuff like that, because there is the music production side of things, but I was also developing as a singer as I kept growing up. And my voice was very, very high at that point. I hadn't hit puberty just yet, but I just love singing, and I got to show it off in such a big stage production that had a big budget around it, and so it was like really extravagant. Everybody was wearing costumes and the sets and everything, and I was in makeup, and I just felt like I was on cloud nine. I was like, I'm famous. I'm at a school production performing Little Mermaid Junior. I'm famous. Wow, that's amazing. And I loved performing. I love performing, but I came to grow performing a lot. I just enjoyed it a lot, and I kept doing stage shows for a little bit. But that was one of the ways I connected with people, like, thespians, as they say, people that are big on performing and stage shows and acting. And I connected with those people a little bit, but I still had a hard time. It was not very easy at all. I think we're just kind of coming back around with like, yeah, it's just about the lack of communication and the fact that I knew I just loved music and I wanted to make it.
But making music for you, was it mostly solo, or were you in bands or choral groups? Or
it was mostly solo, but I had learned by myself, basically doing what I do now. But I did do some choir as well. There was the stage shows, and then there was the choir stuff. Like I did chamber choir, I did show choir. Show choir was the cheesiest thing I've ever been part of, because I did one of these like, fame, I'm gonna live forever. It was so freaking dumb. And show choir, chamber choir, and I did a piano class, but really it was just an opportunity for me to show off the piano skills that I had already. Yeah. It's not like I'm amazing or anything, but perfect pitch really carries me to be able to just be like, okay, can you play Golden Hour real quick, and without looking at the piano music, and I'll just be able to figure that out. Or like if you hummed a note, then I'd be like, that's a G sharp or something like that. So like my mind is hardwired.
Yeah. So there's there's this whole school of neuroanatomy that says we have a fixed amount of real estate, And if you've got real estate for this purpose, you've got less for that purpose. And
Yeah, it's like hyperfixation on certain things. Like I said, with if I had been introduced to video games, or been able to play them a lot more than I was able to, like the complete opposite, then I'd probably not be sitting with you right now. I think that I would be hyperfixated on video games, because of those kind of neurodivergent tendencies to, for me, it's like I get really focused in on something.
so, yeah, you might have been a video game master at the same time.
Mhm.
So who
Might have
knows?
been a video game streamer, which
Yeah.
I do sometimes, but it's like, I'd rather just do music because my parents put music in front of me, and that's all I had basically. Like if I couldn't play video games, what was I going to do? I was going to either play some basketball outside, or like to do some sort of activity that replaces gaming. So I'm gonna open this software and make some music, see what happens.
Yeah.
And it's like an explosion of like, oh, this is something that I can do with my life. Like, obviously I was 5 years old, so I wasn't really thinking about that. But at the same time, I was like, I love this. I think this is something that I'm going to take with me for the rest of my life and forever.
What a gift, and how fortunate you've been. Now, as CG5, it's not just that you are so musically talented, but it's also what you sing about. Your music, I think, has grabbed a lot of people, partly because it's self-revealing. It's sometimes intimate. It's authentic. It's stuff you care about. How do you decide what to sing about?
Well, I started off in my career making songs about video games, so there was a big opening for like songs about video games and especially in the YouTube side of things, because the YouTube is all about animation and gaming. That's what people really gravitate towards, like especially the younger generation. And I wanted to reach out to those people. I may have not been like a big player of video games, but I've always enjoyed like the stories around them and doing the research and looking at all the lore around these video games, like these horror video games, like these scary video games, like Five Nights at Freddy's, which was something that I wrote about. Bendy and Ink Machine. There were all these scary video games that I was writing songs about, but I was trying to make it so that those songs could also gravitate towards those that didn't play those video games. So they have like a kind of a universal, the way I write the lyrics, it's very vague to the video game. Like, it's about that video game, but at the same time, you don't exactly have to know. You can just listen to the song for what it is. So I really loved doing that, and still like doing that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But to have a story in front of me, like if somebody were to give me a story right now, I'd be like, write a song about a troubled man that didn't grow up with a lot of friends. And I'll be like, okay, let's write that song right now in 30 minutes. Like, if they gave me the time limit, I'd be like, okay, let's write that song right now. Let's produce it. Let's play the piano. Let's sing it right now. Like, I'll just have that song for you as soon as possible. Maybe it's bad, maybe it's good, but at least I have it.
Yeah. So you are incredibly prolific. You've got a lot of content that you put out there.
Quite a lot. Yes.
You write a lot. You write fast. You produce quickly. Do you have a sense of what resonates with your audience? I mean, you're talking about millions of people who are following you. What do you think they're taking? What are they listening for? What is it that seems to grab people?
Well, with the audience that I started off with, it was a lot of video game stuff, and so people really liked those video games, and they're like, so I wanna listen to a song about that video game because I like it very much. That's what they're thinking, and so with that in mind, I had to impress them. Like, okay, I'm gonna make a song about this game, but I need them to stick around for more music. So I'm going to make sure that this is the best that I can make it. So I made these songs that went viral for like the past 4 to 5 years, and they have so far been impressed, I think. And they stick around because, yeah, it's about the video game that they like, but they like the song. And so they're going to stick around for more. And then I get the chance to write songs that are more personal to me, such as songs about my mental struggles like anxiety and stuff like that. And which is also something that I have. And anything that, it connects with people. The relatability is important in the mainstream side of music. Because like I said, I was more into the video game side, but I was also trying to meld everything together. And so, I mean, like I've been doing that since the beginning, but now I get to, write more obvious, like this is about me, which has always been kind of hard. Now I have to write more songs about myself. And I'm like, oh, now I have to focus in on singing about myself and learning about me in the process, which is not always easy. Like there was one song I was writing called Freak Out, and I had like 6 pages of notes about myself. And I didn't even need those notes because I basically over-prepared for a song that came really easily because I was focused in on that. And I didn't try to focus in on writing about myself because the goal was to get the content out around the video game. So I was doing the research on that stuff. So I wasn't really focusing in on the personal songs. And nowadays I'm like, okay, now I got to write more songs about myself. And that's difficult, but it's also kind of easy, especially when I'm, like I said, hyperfixated on the idea.
Do you have the sense that people respond to that? When you sing about anxiety or you talk about your own struggles, first of all, I'm curious about how you do that, but also love to know what you're hearing in response. Do people find that useful, helpful? What are they taking from it?
Well, they don't want to feel alone in their struggles, and I don't either. And so to be able to connect with that, the emotional side of things through music, that's what people really love because it's like their theme song, I would say. It's like their life's a movie while they're listening to music. Like when you watch a movie and there's a musical and it's an indiscernible music source, it's like, where's this song coming from? Like, how is Troy Bolton from High School Musical singing Bet on It and just splashing the water? And it's like, you can imagine that without music and it looks super awkward. But like with the music, it's like, okay, yeah, that's his theme song. He's got it in his head. He's a little crazy maybe. But that's pretty much how I see it for everybody else. It's like everybody has their own theme song. Everybody connects with a different song, and it's because of the message around it.
And for you, I mean, when you do this, when you say, okay, I'm going to go deep, I'm going to talk about something I've struggled with or I'm struggling with, is it helpful? Is it painful? What's that experience like?
I think it's pretty helpful. I think it's a distraction from my mental illness. Like I'm working to correct certain things about myself. Like I'm like in terms of chemical, like I'm taking medication and supplements and things like that to stay healthy, to stay aware. But it's not like those struggles are like fully gone. But I have to write those songs sometimes because I feel like, okay, now I need to let all these emotions out on paper because I'm having a really hard day today. Really difficult time. I've had points where my anxiety has been through the roof, where I've had really dark thoughts, and I have to write it down. I have to write it in my journal. If I'm not writing a song, I'm writing in my journal about it, because it's like I'm recycling those thoughts. I'm acting as if like they're out of my mind now. They're not, like, they're written down. They may not actually be gone. Like I can still think very rationally, very intensely about things, and it'll get very, very overwhelming. But at least I can have a distraction. At least I have my music to distract me from these things that are going through my head. Is it a
distraction, or is it actually a way of mastering part of where that struggle is? It's a way, because you do have this extraordinary gift, which is kind of your superpower, right?
I think little by little, yeah, it does help because, I mean, it's not like music is this, magic pill that I take and all of a sudden all my problems go away entirely. But because that's my Zoloft. But I like music. I love it, and I know that. And that's the thing that I'm most confident in. And the fact that I am is the fact it helps me get through the things that I feel like I can't control. The things that I feel like I need to do something about. I need to solve this problem right now, but I can't. There's no way I can do that right now, and I shouldn't. But I can at least, when I say distraction, I mean like it's a healthy distraction. Like it's something that my problems aren't gone, but I can focus on something that I have more control over that I enjoy.
So, Charlie, I want to push you a little bit on this because there are a lot of great artists who will say that their art comes from their suffering, that it is because they have anxiety or they have dark thoughts that they're able to create and to do something that touches people in a profound way. At the same time that it helps them to master the demons that they're struggling with. Is that an experience you've had?
Yeah, I think that when I'm letting out, when I'm singing, when I'm really in my feels, I like to listen to songs that relate to me, that connect to me. Like I said, like a movie theme song. It's like, oh wow, this is really me. And when I write those songs, it absolutely is 100% me because it's about me. So I'm writing those songs and I'm letting out all my feelings that I have, but that's still a difficult thing for me to do. Not because it's like I'm holding in any like spite for, or what's the word for that? Like I'm not holding in any. I don't have a grudge on my feelings or anything. Like it's not like I'm being stubborn. Or I'm like I'm not gonna write these feelings down. I'm just gonna handle it in my head. Everything's gonna be fine. I don't care. No, it's more like it's just something that happens in my head and I know that it's something that is kind of a problem, but I don't have to make it so dramatic all the time. Like, sometimes making a song about that could make it seem a bigger problem than it actually is for myself. But also, there's the side that actually does help. So it's a mixed bag. It's quite a mess in my head. Like everything is pretty loud. But at the same time, I'm kind of just chilling with the thoughts, and yeah.
I hear you, and I guess what I'm thinking about as I listen to you is this series of conversations is really about healing. It's about how people use what they can to recover and to survive with whatever they struggle with. In some ways, you were dealt an unusual hand. I mean, you, as you said at the beginning, being neurodivergent means that you've got a somewhat different kind of brain, a brain that maybe doesn't do as well in the realm of social connections. It doesn't do as well in language in some ways, but it does incredibly well in being able to make music. Mm-hmm. And to appreciate music and to express yourself through music, which is a gift and is something that it seems like it's really allowed you to be able to progress and triumph in some really exciting ways. I mean, you've been pretty successful in what you've chosen to do. Is that the way you feel it or see it, or is that maybe the kind of superficial picture from outside?
I think that I love it. I love all the support that I get on the internet. I don't like hate. There's a lot of hatred on the internet. People that are kind of aimlessly, looking for a way to just rile up the creator.
How do you deal with that?
Just kind of look at it like this is just somebody that doesn't have anything better to do with themselves right now than just release the Kraken on somebody that is doing better than they are. So I think that that's really what it is. And but at the same time, at least they are connecting with the content. Like they see the content and they're engaging with it, and that helps me out a little bit. So thanks, haters. I appreciate it. But honestly, the fans are the staple for my career. I love seeing support. I love seeing that others can connect with my music. I've gotten messages where it's like I've helped people, you know, survive. I've helped people stay alive. You know, like they've struggled mentally and they've been able to stick it through with my music, and that's always been a bit of a game changer to be able to see how it's connected, how my music is connected with others.
Yeah. So in this series, we talk a lot about the 3 P's for healing: people, place, and purpose. And clearly, this has given you that purpose and that connection. It's given you a sense of a community that's out there that matters. Where do you see this going? How, like, if you could dial forward 5 years, what do you think?
What do I see this going like I write more music about myself more than I used to, I think, because that's what people gravitate towards now, and we'll always have. But now I have to connect on a more emotional level with myself and with others. Kind of change the game a little bit for myself, because everybody's been doing this already for a while, and now I have to do it more for myself, and it's very confusing. But I think that I really want to see my career, you know, go somewhere else. Go not somewhere else in in the sense that I'm going to be a famous painter or something of walls, but no, I'm going to keep making music. But I want to just do what I do, and with more people, I guess.
Yeah. You make me think that we have to add a 4th P beyond people, place, and purpose. We need to talk about passion, because you certainly have that. In all these conversations, we end by asking people if you could have a conversation with your younger self and go back in time, what would you say?
If I could have a conversation with my younger self, I would tell him everything is going to be okay. You're going to figure it out. You're going to understand soon what you're going through, because you may not right now, but it's all going to come together eventually. You're going to do amazing things, and just keep on dreaming big. Good job, Charlie.
I should have asked you at the beginning, CG5, where's the number come from?
Charles Green. I'm the 5th generation in my family. It's not like an official name because we all have different middle names, but I have a British heritage, and my dad is Charles Green, and then his dad is Charles Green. So it's a generational name.
Charlie, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. Thanks for your honesty. Thanks for sharing so much of your story, and thanks for what you do.
Thank you for having me, Tom. I appreciate it.